8 mice were placed inside a carefully designed paradise, 4 males and 4 females. They had unlimited food, unlimited water, no predators, no disease, and no danger of any kind. Yet less than 5 years later, every one of them was dead, and none of the deaths could be explained by any ordinary medical diagnosis. This was Universe 25, one of the most unsettling social experiments ever conducted. In 1968, American researcher John Calhoun created what he believed was the ideal environment for mice. Every corner contained soft nesting material. The temperature remained perfectly controlled. The enclosure was cleaned on a strict schedule. The animals themselves were among the healthiest specimens available from a government breeding colony. Calhoun had spent decades pursuing a single question: what happens to a society when survival becomes effortless? Before this experiment, he had already built 24 different mouse and rat utopias in forests, barns, and laboratories. In every case, he observed the same sequence: population growth, rising aggression, distorted social behavior, withdrawal, and finally collapse. Universe 25 was intended to be the definitive test. The enclosure was a 9-foot square habitat with apartment-like nesting spaces stacked along the walls and connected by vertical mesh tunnels. Food hoppers were constantly full, and water bottles never emptied. The design could have supported roughly 3,800 mice. On the first day, Calhoun placed the 8 founders inside and sealed the enclosure. For the first 104 days, little changed. The mice explored, established sleeping areas, and learned the layout. Then the first litters arrived, and the population began doubling roughly every 55 days. By day 315, more than 600 mice lived inside the enclosure. They crowded the ramps, slept in heaps, and competed for nesting spots near the upper apartments. This was the point where the system began to unravel. In the wild, excess mice can leave crowded territory and establish themselves elsewhere. Inside Universe 25, there was nowhere to go. Young males who could not secure territory drifted into the center of the enclosure and formed inactive clusters. Calhoun watched them for hours doing almost nothing. They had no territory to defend, no status to earn, and no clear purpose. When attacked, many would not even fight back. They simply absorbed the blows, moved a short distance away, and lay down again. At the same time, another group emerged, highly aggressive males that moved frantically through the enclosure. They forced their way into nests, ignored normal courtship behavior, and persisted even when dominant males attacked them. Soon, behaviors appeared that had rarely been seen in healthy mouse societies. Many females withdrew from social life altogether. Those unable to find a stable place in the hierarchy retreated to the highest apartments and lived in isolation. They stopped interacting with males and eventually stopped reproducing. Calhoun also observed what he called a behavioral sink. Even though food was available everywhere, the mice crowded obsessively around a few particular feeding stations. Empty feeders elsewhere remained untouched while certain areas became packed with animals. The crowding intensified. Mothers that were still attempting to raise pups began to fail under the pressure. Defending a nest required constant effort. Territorial males became exhausted and stopped protecting their families. Females were forced to defend nests while nursing their young. Many abandoned their pups. Some scattered them throughout the enclosure. Others seemed unable to recognize their own offspring. In the worst cases, mothers killed and consumed their young. In some parts of the colony, fewer than 1 in 20 newborns survived long enough to be weaned. Calhoun later wrote that by this stage, the colony's social structure was effectively dead. The bodies remained alive, but the system that held them together as a functioning society had collapsed. The surviving young were raised in an environment where healthy social behavior was almost absent. When they matured, they displayed a pattern Calhoun had never seen before. These mice ate, slept, and groomed themselves constantly. They never fought, rarely interacted, and showed almost no interest in mating. Their fur remained immaculate because they were never injured in conflict. Calhoun called them italic, the beautiful ones italic. Externally, they appeared to be the healthiest animals in the colony. Functionally, they had withdrawn from the species itself. They neither reproduced nor participated in social life. On day 560, the population reached its peak at about 2,200 mice. It never increased again. The last successful conception occurred on day 920. After that, no new mice were born. The colony simply aged. The beautiful ones continued grooming themselves. Isolated females remained in their upper apartments. Violence persisted in scattered pockets without any larger purpose. Gradually, the mice died of old age and no younger generation replaced them. On May 23, 1973, the final mouse in Universe 25 died, 4 years and 10 months after the enclosure had been sealed. Calhoun wrote that the colony experienced 2 deaths, first the death of the spirit, and only later the death of the body. The first occurred years before the second. When the study became public, many people drew a simple conclusion. Comfort destroys societies. Abundance destroys societies. A life without struggle eventually collapses. The image of the beautiful once perfect, looking yet quietly extinct became a powerful symbol used by writers, politicians, religious leaders, and critics of modern life. But that was not Calhoun's actual conclusion. His real argument was more specific. For a complex species, he wrote, collapse becomes likely when the number of individuals capable of filling meaningful roles exceeds the number of meaningful roles available. In other words, the problem was not comfort itself. The problem was the disappearance of purpose. As the population grew, the colony could no longer provide enough meaningful roles for its members. Fighters had nothing worth fighting for. Mothers defended nests with little support. The young inherited no clear place in the social order. The structure that gave each individual a reason to participate gradually vanished. Food remained abundant. Water remained abundant. What disappeared was meaning. Calhoun did not spend the rest of his career predicting inevitable collapse. He spent it trying to discover how to prevent it. He continued building new experimental worlds and changing the conditions, searching for the missing ingredient that could allow a prosperous society to remain healthy. He believed it was possible. He argued that as physical space becomes more crowded, societies must expand into what he called conceptual space ideas, networks, creativity, and new forms of contribution. He used the term ideational generativity, which simply meant creating new reasons for people to matter. The way forward, he believed, was to keep creating new roles, new responsibilities, and new purposes. Yet, the data from Universe 25 remains difficult to ignore. A perfectly supplied paradise, 8 mice, less than 5 years, complete extinction, and a cause of death that no toxicology report could ever identify. The mice had no choice. We still do.